Beloved, let me speak to you gently but clearly. Heaven did more than watch you. Endure the storm, it responded. Something shifted in the unseen, and your position has quietly been elevated. This was not a passing thought or a hopeful idea. A decision was made about you firmly and intentionally in the courts of heaven. And you can already feel its echo in your daily life. Mornings no longer feel like survival mode. There is a calm readiness in you. Now a steadiness that wasn't there before. It's as if something deep within your spirit has finally settled into truth. For a long time, heaven has been paying close attention to your life, not with judgment, not waiting for you to fall, but with care. Every unseen sacrifice mattered. Every quiet choice counted. The moments you thought were ordinary were not overlooked. The time you chose silence instead of revenge. The day you showed up bruised, tired, and still chose integrity. These were not small moments, they were sacred. Tests of character, as Scripture reminds. Us, for you, God, tested us, you refined us like silver. Psalm 66 toten. And now, the refining is bearing fruit. If your life were a song, most people only ever heard the polished refrain, the parts that sounded strong, hopeful, and easy to recognize. But heaven listened much closer. It leaned into the verses you almost whispered, the pauses where your breath shook, the moment still, unfinished and unresolved. That is where your true music was formed, what drew heaven's attention was never a role you performed or an image you maintained. It was the way suffering softened you. Instead of closing you off, pain did not turn you cruel, betrayal did not make you bitter. When you learned how sharp truth could be, you refused to use it as a weapon. You chose gentleness with strength, and that choice carried weight in the unseen. This is why your position shifted. Spiritual authority is not handed to the loudest voice in the room. It is entrusted to those who remain sincere when pretending would have been easier. Promotion in the spirit is not a prize to display. It is a recognition of endurance. Heaven looked at your life and said they can carry more without losing who they are. You thought you were barely holding on. Heaven saw maturity forming, leadership taking shape, depth being built where applause could not reach. Look back at the season you just walked through. You prayed through confusion, not clarity. You practiced discipline when emotion failed. You released forgiveness that was never requested and may never be acknowledged. You rebuilt your peace slowly, one quiet morning at a time. These were not acts of weakness. They were signs of authority. They proved that your spirit learned how to govern what once governed you, and heaven never overlooks that kind of evidence. Scripture says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial," because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. James 1:12. Perseverance was not just shaping your future, it was qualifying you for trust. There comes a moment in every army when a soldier is called into a quiet room, no audience, no celebration, just a higher authority, placing new insignia on the table and saying, from this moment on, your responsibility changes. That is what just took place in the spirit. You were summoned forward. Angels stepped back. Your history stood behind you as God reviewed every unseen detail, the tears you hid, the restraint you practiced, the honesty you protected, and heaven said, now they are ready. This was not symbolic. Something real was placed on your life. And since then you have felt it, even if you could not name it. Situations that once drained you no longer reach as deeply. Conversations that used to stir anxiety now meet a calmer response. You notice that when tension enters a room, peace often returns when you speak why. Without effort, without force. This is not pride, it is elevation. Chosen one. This is what spiritual promotion feels like before it ever looks like anything. It is the freedom to move more slowly, the lack of interest in gossip, the release from needing to explain yourself. It is finding rest in places where you once stayed guarded. Your presence now carries a steadiness that cannot be rehearsed. You have become the safe place you once searched for. That is why heaven raised your rank. While others chased visibility, you built character. While others collected approval, you gathered wisdom. While others performed faith, you lived it quietly, fully seen and fully recorded. Scripture reminds us, the path of the righteous is like the morning sun shining ever brighter till the full light of day. Proverbs 4:18. If you notice life beginning to align with who you truly are, you are not imagining it. If your decisions feel clearer and your voice calmer, you are not becoming distant, you are becoming established. This is what it means to stand where heaven has already seated you. Even now your name has been moved. On a board you cannot see, some things may feel more demanding, alongside the new ease, the unexpected openings, the quiet good finding you, and in the stillness that follows, heaven pauses just before your new name is spoken aloud. When God calls you by a new name, it rarely arrives as an audible sound. More often, it arrives as a shift in how life responds to you. You begin to notice that situations meet you differently. Some of these changes feel gentle, even beautiful. Others feel weighty and demanding. Both are signs that something has changed in the unseen. When heaven entrusts you with more, it does not only release comfort, it releases responsibility. Favor always travels with assignment. You may first notice this change in your interactions with people. Someone who once dismissed your words suddenly pauses to listen. Someone who used to joke at your expense no longer finds the opening, not because you became intimidating, but because something within you no longer agrees to being diminished. Your spirit no longer participates in being the easy target. This alone will create distance with certain people, especially those who relied on your uncertainty to control the tone of the room. That is what spiritual authority looks like in real life. Not spectacle, not drama, but boundaries that remain steady even when pressed. And yes, some people will feel uncomfortable around this version of you. The ones who preferred you unsure, apologetic, always explaining yourself. They may say you've changed. They may call you distant or cold when in truth, you simply stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. That is not loss. That is alignment. This new rank will reveal itself in three clear ways. First, in what you allow, you will feel a quiet but firm resistance rise up when something no longer belongs in your life. Old habits, old dynamics, old roles you once played, they will feel foreign now. Not tempting, not dramatic, just wrong. You won't need long explanations for why you're stepping away. Your spirit already knows. Second, in who comes to you. Strangers may open up with surprising honesty. Family members may bring you their real concerns instead of edited versions. People will tell you, sometimes without realizing why I feel safe talking to you. This safety is not something you learned. It is something you carry. Scripture says, the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, considerate, full of mercy. James 3:17, that wisdom is beginning to mark your presence. Third, in how you hear God, not louder voices or constant answers, but clearer direction, a steady inner knowing. This way, not that way. Stay here. Let that go. It won't feel chaotic. It will feel grounded. This is not confusion. This is guidance. Promote. Ion in the spirit does not mean life becomes easier overnight. Sometimes it means conversations become more serious. Decisions carry more weight. Your words reach deeper for good or for harm. That is why heaven waited. God observed how you handled pain when no one applauded. Now he watches how you handle influence. You are not permitted to use your story to shame others. You are not permitted to use your confidence to diminish anyone. This is the weight of your new rank. You carry more. So what you do with it matters more. You will also notice a change in your inner dialogue. There was a time when you replayed conversations endlessly, questioned yourself, tried to fix people's opinions in your mind. Now you may catch yourself saying, I know who I am. God knows who I am. That is enough. And then you move forward. This is not arrogance. This is identity finally settling into place. There may be moments when you pause and wonder why everything feels so serious all of a sudden. Why you seem to be the one who notices what others avoid. Why you can't pretend anymore. Why you feel
like the anchor in certain rooms, the one holding things steady. This is not coincidence.
You were trained for this, quietly, every time you chose truth over image, every time you stayed with discomfort.
Instead of escaping it, every time you walked away from drama instead